Good evening and welcome to the Taxation Aid Committee. It is Thursday, January 27th at 5:49. In keeping with an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency signed into law by Governor Baker on June 16th, this meeting will be conducted remotely over Zoom. Attendance by board members will be remote, and remote attendance shall count towards quorum. The meeting will be broadcast live and recorded on ECAT. To use Zoom, you will need to use the link on the agenda or download the Zoom application at zoom.us and create an account or use one of the call-in numbers listed on the agenda. You will need the webinar ID to join by phone only. While conducting meetings remotely over Zoom, we will endeavor to keep meeting operations as close to our standard procedure as possible. However, use of this platform will necessitate some additional meeting protocols. While the board members and commissioners and applicants will be on video and audio, public participants will join the webinar as an attendee, meaning they are muted and with no video feed from them. During the public testimony portion, the meeting members during the public testimony portion of the meeting, members of the public can be recognized by using the raise hand function found under participants from Zoom, or make a request in the Q&A function. If you are joining only by phone, press *9 to raise your hand. If an applicant wishes to display materials, please make the request of the chair and the materials to the board staff for sharing on the screen. When starting testimony, please state your name and address for the record. There is a markup function in Zoom which will allow you to call out specific areas of your presentation materials. As in any public meeting, indecent behavior will not be tolerated, and anyone who abuses use of the meeting platform will be terminated from the meeting. Business will be handled at the times indicated on the agenda. Business not concluded in the allotted time will be tabled to the end of the meeting for timely logons and remote attendance. Board members are asked to announce themselves when making a motion. And second, so that it is clear to the audience and the minute takers who made the motions, all votes will be by roll call. When business indicated on the agenda has been concluded, the members will vote to adjourn the meeting, signaling the end of the meeting and termination of the ECAT recording. All participants will be disconnected from the webinar at this time. Applicants will join the webinar as attendee and be promoted to panelists as their agenda item arrives. Applicants will then be able to share their screens and present their materials. As much as possible, presentation materials should be provided beforehand and loaded into Permit Eyes so that materials can be included in the public record. Individual board chairs and staff may wish to keep screen sharing to their computer. Applicants are encouraged to speak with the staff prior to the meeting on how material will be presented. All right, so first on today's agenda is to approve the meeting minutes from last meeting.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of last meeting.
I second it. We'll do a roll call. Linda?
Hawks, aye.
Andrew Fleischer, yes.
Mike McKenna, aye.
All right. Next item.
Andrew, before we move on, do we have to also approve the executive session meeting minutes?
I believe so. Are they separate? Are they two separate documents?
They are.
Okay. I motion to approve the meeting minutes from the executive session in our last meeting. Linda?
Hawks, aye.
Fleischer, yes.
Aye, Mike McKenna.
All right. So the next item, mailer insert for excise tax bills. So the excise tax bills are the next big mailer, I think, that are going out
Yep, at the end of next week.
at the end of next week.
Yep.
Is there still time to get a mailer into those?
Yes.
Okay. So the mailer I sent out was almost, I think, identical to, almost identical. I removed one sentence that said, almost identical to what we used last time. I removed one sentence that said, we can only help others through donations like yours. Removed that because we're now, dealing with federal money, so I didn't want to mislead the public.
Okay, yep.
But and then I added instructions on how to pay online. And those instructions are the same as what we have on our website. So I think, unless you guys have any suggestions about how to change it or anything to add, I would like to add that to the excise tax bills, because that'll reach the largest. I would guess that would be the largest mailing that you do all year, right, Linda?
Yes, it is 22,000 bills.
Yes.
This commitment. The only thing is, I will need to be sure, and they can always stretch it out a little bit more so that the margins are a little bit smaller. It needs to be that needs to be a 1/3 cut piece of paper.
Okay.
In order to stick with, I forget what they were charging us, but it's 1/3 cut. So we need to be able to fit 3 of those on each page. It looks like it's a little big, but I will send that to the Globe, our printer, and I will, if everybody's okay with it, which I am, I'll send it over to them tomorrow and make sure that it doesn't need to be reformatted, just margins.
Okay. Yeah, that would be fine, because we could just, they can fiddle with it, or you can fiddle with it to make it work.
Yep. And oddly enough, just FYI, no one has paid online yet.
For the donations?
Yep. I thought that would be a great tool, and maybe people just don't know, or
I did it.
You go in. Did you?
I did it to
Andrew?
test it. Yeah, I did it over the summer.
Okay. Well, if there was, because I was talking to my collector today, and she's like, no, nobody pays on that. They all pay with checks, separate checks. And I know that I had pinged it. I know that I had, just with something small, just to make sure it went through.
That's exactly what I did. I saw it there, and I had already made a donation earlier, and I said,
if you did, then I will have to say you are the only one. It is, or I guess what I should say is, without being dramatic, it is not being used. Maybe this will help. Maybe the mailer will.
Yeah, I'm hoping that this mailer will help, because I don't know. In my own personal experience, excise tax bills, I feel like everybody must pay those online, the majority. And if you're there, you see the flyer and you see the drop down, and it's an option in the drop down, maybe we can get you to do that one extra step.
Yes. Yes. People must see it, and they just don't realize what it is for.
Yeah.
But
oh well.
But that's all right. I'll get this flyer out with the excise bills. They'll be in the mail before next Friday. So hopefully we'll get a little bit of money.
Great. Mike, do you have any? I'm not going to do an official vote on this, but do you have any thoughts? Are you okay with the mailer and everything?
Yes, I'm fine.
Okay.
You want to vote on it, or?
I don't think we need to vote on this. I'm not exactly sure. I think the main thing we need to vote on is the applications, but why don't we just have a vote? I motion that we include the mailer that I provided.
I second
move
that.
that we include that in the excise tax bills. Mike seconds. Linda,
Hawks Eye.
Andrew Fleischer, yes.
Mike McKenna, yes.
Okay. All right, moving on to the next item, and probably the most interesting one, discussion of the Arpa rules. So I had sent out that email last night with the summary of the guidelines, and I read through it, and there are, it looks like a lot, but there's really 4 or 5 pages that I would say apply to what we're trying to do. So there is a section, and I don't have it in front of me, but there was a section that applied to individual usage, right? For when the funds would go directly to an individual. So I read that piece over a couple times to just kind of digest it. And my main takeaway was that I think we will need to change our application because currently we're using 80% AMI. And the guidelines that I read put it at that we could either use 300% of the poverty rate, which is something we originally adopted, was 300%. And then someone suggested using AMI. We used 80% when we voted on the application last summer. So the guideline that I read said 65% of AMI. So what I was thinking is that we could, and we can kind of table this till our next meeting. This is really more of a discussion point. But what I was thinking is that what we would do on our application is have 2 separate sections, 2 separate criteria. And what I would suggest is we would say, to be eligible for funds, you must meet 80% AMI from the town. To be eligible for funds from the taxation fund, you must reach 80%. But to be eligible for funds from the federal government, the Arpa funds, you must reach 65%, and then lay out the table there. So just have 2 separate criteria on the same application, because we're going to be treating the funds separately, in the way we award them. So I think that's probably the best way to do it, unless we wanted to change altogether, going to 65 across the board. But I don't know that that is entirely necessary. Does anybody have thoughts on that, or thoughts on anything regarding the ARPA funds in general?
On the for the federal funds, is that just for 65? I mean, when I looked it over, it didn't seem to have an age statement on it. So, if you're going to use federal funds, are you going to open it up? Does that open it up to different, like a different criteria on age?
So this is the tough question, and Linda and I Linda just made this point to me earlier. You're right. There's nothing pertaining to seniors in the guidelines. However, our committee only exists because we're supposed to give funds to seniors and disabled. So we're kind of empowered by the law that enacted the taxation aid funds, and that specifically charges us with giving funds to seniors and disabled people. So I don't know if I don't know if we can step outside of the those guidelines, even if we are giving out money other than our own,
Right.
Because I feel like we're exceeding.
Right, would the feds do something about it though?
I don't know. I feel like we would be exceeding our authority as a committee.
No. What I'm saying is, would the feds, because it's federal money.
Yeah.
If you're only giving it to 65 and older, and if Joe Blow is 55 years old, has lost his job, and is in the poverty in that 300% or 300 times the poverty level, is the federal government going to say, "Hey, you didn't follow our guidelines"?
Yeah, I think in that respect, and that's a fantastic question. I mean, that's a fantastic question. I think in that respect, the town has the authority, and the town manager, and the town has the authority to decide where the funds are going to go.
Right.
And so it's more like we can decide where it goes, but we have to do it in a way that targets people who are disproportionately affected by COVID. And so one of those criteria is, I didn't see any mention of elderly people, which kind of surprised me, because in my opinion, they're definitely disproportionately affected by it, without a doubt. But one of the criteria was medium or moderate to low income. So that would be where we would be getting our authority to do it. But I don't think they would say you're being too specific beyond that. I mean, I think we're going to have another conversation with, Connor on this, because he's more the expert.
Connor or the finance director, who's the one who would be the person ultimately responsible for reporting back to the federal government what we did with our money. I would be careful. I would keep our function and our process very. The Arpa funds can be used. It's supposed to target any household that's been negatively impacted by COVID. There's no age requirements. And negatively impacted is very loosely defined in the rules. The rule book, despite that it's 150 pages long, really it just points towns in direction, cities and towns in direction. So I'm looking at our 80% of the area median income. I think that that's adequate. I think we're still going to target a whole swath of people. I would not, and if we want to bring it down to 65%, am I going in the wrong direction? Well, if you want to loosen those guidelines up,
we'd be making it more. I didn't crunch the numbers myself because I couldn't remember what the original AMI was. But
well, just to give you, at 80%, a family of two, the limit was $63,950. A family of four is $79,900. We do still have to, because our charge is on elderly and disabled people, we still have to stick in that, that demographic. I think it would be asking too much for us to essentially administer a portion of the Arpa program for the town of Easton that is household assistance. I think that's basically what they, and it can be used for anything. It doesn't have to even be used for their taxes. I personally would make it that for our committee. Connor's thought, and bear in mind that Connor won't be back until he's out on paternity leave or family leave. He will not be back until he's got like 3 months off, so January, February, March. So he won't be back till late March anyways. But when he and the finance director and I were discussing this, he didn't want us going outside of our charge, basically,
Okay.
which is target money at elderly and disabled. And I think that when you narrow it down to that group of people, our income guidelines also follow pretty logically along with that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The
So,
ARPA funds themselves can be used for anything.
so do you think? So do you think that the 65% number is more of a suggestion than a rule? Because
I guess I didn't see that in the paperwork that I had.
yeah,
Was it in that in the summary thing?
yeah, it was in the summary. Hold on.
Because I thought that where I was noticing it, it said something about 80, but isn't 65% of area isn't that more restrictive?
It is more restrictive.
At 80%, that will capture more people.
No. So we. Oh, I read it. Hold on. Let me. This is awkward, but I rushed in from the office, so let me just step away for a second and grab my packet because I can literally just read it.
Okay.
1 second. All right. So on page 17, this is what I was reading from. On the this is from the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds overview of the final rule. So on page 17, it says lower moderate income households and communities are those with income at or below 300% of the federal poverty guidelines for the household based on the most recently published poverty guidelines, or income at or below 65% of the area median income for the county and size of household based on the most recent published data. So what I take that to mean is if we're using these funds and justifying that by saying that it's going to moderate to low income, that we would then have to give them out to people who are 65% or lower. So that's why I'm saying we have to be more restrictive for these funds than we're currently being. That's at least how I read it.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so I think the best way to do it is if there's so luckily we have our own funds. So if someone gets caught in the middle where we can't give them federal funds, but we can help them ourselves, I think we would most likely respond by stepping up and granting them money through our account rather than doing it from the ARPA funds. I think we just need to we will need to change the application so that is clear.
Yes.
So that's.
So the only thing is, I wonder why this final rule, which actually was advertised, this was back in May or something like that? January of 22. Sorry. This isn't what I sent you though, is it, Andrea?
Yeah, it is.
It is?
Yeah, am I reading the wrong thing?
No, this is fine. I thought the thing I sent you was dated in May of 21, and it hadn't actually been. No, this is it. This is it.
Okay, good. Because I didn't look at the full text because I I said if the summary is 40 plus pages, that's good enough for me.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so is that 65% of a county median?
Yes.
Yeah, and I don't know. I'll have to go back to Corey's original email when we established our guidelines.
Yes.
I'll have to go back and see if that was county that he used or if it was.
I think that's Easton. I think we used Easton, in which case the county probably wouldn't. That this county's going to make it even worse for us.
It's gonna make it lower, yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Okay.
or I would suggest that what we do is or what I can do is see which is higher, 300% of 300% of the
Federal.
poverty rate.
Yeah.
Yeah, or the county is 65% of the county, and whichever is higher. Yeah, because the county would level things out a bit if we were using like an Easton specific number.
Oh yeah.
So for sure, because Bristol County covers a lot of different communities. So I think what we should do is just go with whatever's highest.
Okay.
Whatever enables us to reach the most.
Yeah, so we will need to swing this by. I think it would be smart to kind of go on, assuming that we're still going to be able to use a bunch of money, have plans, but then we will need to sort of swing them by. There's an assistant town administrator who's also very capable, acting in Connor's absence.
Okay.
I'm sure he could also opine and be on the same page as Connor, but.
Well, what I can do is we can circulate our thoughts in this meeting and go back. I can figure out the actual numbers and stuff, and then I can talk to the assistant town administrator, maybe the what was the name you mentioned before? It's escaping me.
The assistant town administrator is Mike Blanchard.
Yeah, and then the finance.
Oh, Wendy Nightingale is the finance director.
The finance director.
Yep.
And then run it by them.
Yes.
And then we can finalize it.
Yes. Between all of these heads, it'll be fine.
Yeah, I assume so. If we can reach a consensus, I think.
Yep.
All right. So it sounds like we'll need to stay within our charge of reaching out to only. On our application, we have it. I believe the age we used was 60 plus. So
I was just looking at that. It was 60. Yes.
Yeah, 60.
Yep.
So we'll have to stick with that. We did have some leeway in deciding what elderly meant. So luckily we're not stuck to any like retirement age or anything like that.
Yeah.
So we can reach a larger group. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the dollar amounts. So in just perusing this final rule stuff, I didn't see any mention of limits of
right.
of how much we can award to an individual. But I know from speaking with Connor and Wendy and yourself, Linda, that I think the general idea is that we need to stay within what the what an individual could have gotten from the government in the stimulus.
With the stimulus. And it does say in preliminary, not this final rule, but in the preliminary summary of ARPA things, and this might have been the thing that came out in May. It does say in there, governments may consider and take guidance from the per person amounts previously provided by the federal government in response to the COVID-19 crisis. So, so I had brought that because originally Connor was saying, or it was suggested, not just by Connor, $1,000.
Right.
But when you go back to the stimulus checks, they were $1,200 plus dependents. Then the second one was $600 plus $600 per dependent. And then the third stimulus check was $1,400 per person, or $2,800 per couple. So, so there's quite a range there.
Yeah.
And I had discussed previously $1,400. I think that would be $1,400 would be good.
Did Connor, when you went back to him with that, did he agree?
The discussion, yes, with the town administrator and the finance director and myself was that $1,400 would be right in
reasonable.
line with those stimulus payments.
Is that per quarter?
That is per, well, that would be per person,
Yeah. So if we,
per applicant, I should say, per household.
For the fiscal year?
For the, yes.
yeah. So is that's a good question too. Is if we give someone $1,400 this year, they apply next year. Can we give them $1,400 over and over again?
I think we can. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think
we do
we
that
can.
with the, on the assessors. You know, they can keep filing every year.
Right.
Yeah, because I mean, if we can, I would like to do that. If we deem somebody eligible, I'd like to give them as much as we can. Obviously.
Yeah, and
Okay.
if between ARPA funds and the taxation aid, you know, the donations, if we could come up with $2,400 off of a person's tax bill in a year, that at least is very significant. That's not a small amount of money for hardly any of our bills. Well, in reasonable houses.
Yeah, for $1,400 can go a long way if you keep it in your pocket instead of paying it on your tax bill.
Yep. That is the other thing is the $1,400. Because we're the taxation aid committee, the intent is to defray the cost of taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And there was discussion. I think it is outside the scope of our committee to be the people who administer the ARPA funds for household assistance. I think that's outside our scope. But it's not. But it certainly is well within our scope to say you're going to get $1,400. Apply it to your taxes.
Or your tax bill.
Right. And in fact, I think that the checks, what was discussed was the checks may have to be written out to each individual person and then signed over to the town of Easton for their taxes. Because in the language of the documents that have been put out so far, it seems to be talking about direct assistance to the person, which is fine, but not for this committee because our committee is designed to defray the cost of taxes. Yeah. So I think we can solve that problem by having the check written to the person, and then the person has to sign it over to us for taxes. And I think that's getting a little bit further down the road than we need to be, but I think we will, that's a solution to everybody's sort of question about what our function is as opposed to what the function of the ARPA funds are.
Yeah. Essentially, we're kind of operating in like a Venn diagram
I know,
where
yeah.
we have the rules that we're established under. We have the rules of the federal government, and we're somewhere in
Yes,
the middle for that.
yes.
So,
But I think it's an important. I'm glad we have the committee because I think it will serve the town very well because it's a great way of spending and utilizing this money. I shouldn't say spending the money, but utilizing the money and targeting it and getting it to the people who need it the most. And that's the purpose of those funds.
yeah, I agree. I think this is excellent for this to come our way because it will accomplish the goal of helping people who are disproportionately affected by COVID.
Yep.
And it'll also accomplish our goal of helping seniors and disabled stay in their homes. And so I'm, once we get an idea of what we're doing as a committee, I'm excited to start reaching out and trying to let people know this is available to you.
Yes.
Use it. It's there.
So there'll be 2 applications.
Through applications, absolutely.
No, there'd be 2 different applications for each side.
So what I was thinking of just adding on our application something that delineated the two, saying there is the ARPA funds, there's the town of Easton funds. The criteria for the ARPA funds are this. They're pretty much can be the same criteria, except we have to add that 65%. And then the criteria, so we could just add the language in a way to make it one application, I think.
Yep, or we can just change the income guidelines, use the same application, because remember, our application for this fiscal year is already done. We've distributed the money for fiscal year 22, which is what we're in. The only funds available to us for the rest of this fiscal year, if only because we don't have that much money in the account, and I didn't check today how much money we have. But I think last we checked it, we had about 5,000 and we spent 3,700.
Yeah, I think we were like 2,800 or something.
Yeah, so it's not a ton of money left. And we have to spend this first round of ARPA funds by the end of the fiscal year, or June 30th. So really the only money that we can use right now is the ARPA funds. So I wouldn't feel bad if we just replaced that section on our application with the different dollar amounts, the limits, and then send it out. We can even put on the header of the application that it's the Taxation Aid Committee, the application, and then write ARPA funds after it or something like that.
The only reason I was thinking of keeping it one application is to avoid confusion.
Yep.
But I think either's fine because I think likely on the other side of the application is going to be you or Corey or somebody to say, no, just apply once, it's fine. I think that either way, I think either way would be effective if we just said this. And I see what you're saying is for this year, all we're going to be doing for the rest of this fiscal year is trying to distribute ARPA funds. So when we put out the call, we might as well just change the application that we put out just to say for the ARPA funds.
And so then next year, it could be a combined one.
Could be a combined.
Because we'll get it out in early, like late in the summer, and have it returned by October, and then hit the tax bills for February and May.
Okay. So this is some good stuff to digest and to think about. Yep. Does anybody have anything else regarding ARPA or just kind of the regulation part of it. So I think
No.
what we'll do is we'll we have an idea of what direction we want to head in. We'll discuss that with the people, the people who are available to go over it with us, make sure that they think we're on the right path. And then when we meet next time, we can, approve an application for it, and kind of put it into, set it in stone.
Yep. Yep,
Okay.
we'll have to, because we'll need these probably returned by, I would certainly no later than the end of May.
Okay.
And even then, probably not. Probably by the middle of April, vote on them at the end of April, get them applied to people's May payments.
Okay. So, well, that brings us to the next item was,
Sorry,
no, you transitioned
jumped
seamlessly.
ahead.
you did it seamlessly. So it was to discuss the timeline. So because so if we, so May is our target. End of May is our target to get funds to people. Then we would want to. So say that again, and I'm just going to jot it down. So if we go,
it would be nice to have the applications returned to us by the middle of April, so that we can vote on them, vote on the recipients at the end of April. The tax bills are due May 1st. And if they don't, if people, end up paying their quarterly payment for May, because we can't quite get it together by that time, I can always apply it to May and then move that credit up to next year once we have those bills. So they're still going against their taxes. They still reap the benefit.
Would it be better to have it April 1st?
yeah, that's what I was going to say.
It would be better. I just don't know if that's so
Enough
if we had
time.
a meeting in February,
we can meet in February. Say starting in February, start soliciting for applications.
yes,
With the deadline of April 1st, so everybody would
Yes.
have a little bit of time in February, all of March
yes,
to apply.
yes,
Then we would, between April 1st and the end of April or middle of May, we would want to make our decision.
yep.
Okay. Does that roughly sound good?
Yes.
So I know Kelly's writing this down, but I'm going to write it
It
down.
would be nice to have the decision made by May 1st. Actually, just if you just back that up, that one last piece up, and then I can tell people
Okay. So
in time for their May 1st.
So we'll meet, or the general timeline is we meet in February. Applications will be open. Let's just say March 1st through, or we'll do it earlier if we can.
Yep.
We'll do it earlier if we can, but we'll just say March 1st through April 1st.
Yep.
And then we will decide by May 1st.
Yep. I think
So
that's
that'll probably put us meeting once in February and once again in April.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I think that's an excellent timeline, and it doesn't put us too under the gun.
Yep.
Gives us a little bit of time, but I think we at least have an idea of where we want to head with the application. So I think the real work might be to just get the word out there between now and
Yes.
April 1st,
Yes.
so that we have applicants.
We can decide next time, but we have these 4 oh, well, actually, if the income limit is gonna go down, I would not require that the 4 applicants that we already have apply again. I think their income was all pretty low, but without knowing the guidelines, I would like to be able to just sort of automatically give them all.
Yeah, or maybe we could call or send a letter and say,
Yes.
would you like to apply again?
Yeah.
Check yes or no. And you check
Yep.
yes, and we just roll over your application.
Yep. Because actually, I have to make sure that in the fine print, the federal government isn't saying something like, yeah, well, if you get a check from the federal government, from the Arpa, it's taxable. I haven't found it yet. I haven't heard any grumblings about that. But that essentially comes down to, the government just gave you a check of some sort.
Yeah,
And I
taxable.
can see the IRS saying, well, you got to pay taxes on it then.
Yeah.
So I will be sure of that before we go any further, though. I know the stuff that we've done so far is not.
Yeah, we'll want to know that just so that we can tell people that we won't be able to do anything about it, obviously.
Yep. Yep. And I wonder, sometimes I wonder if that's why they want it direct assistance. But you're not reporting. It's not like it. I don't even know how they'd know. I don't know. No, that's not even reasonable. We don't have their social security numbers or anything. So no, that's just a dumb idea. Never mind. Scrap that. Scrap that. Now that I'm talking it out, it doesn't make sense.
Okay. So you don't think that it would be taxable income?
No, we'd need everybody's social security numbers.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I guess Wendy and Connor would know if that's part of their reporting requirement.
Yeah. But I don't believe so. But I will find out. I'll find out for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Stranger things have happened.
Yeah. All right. So the next item in the meeting is to discuss review and vote on applicant D. This item was tabled from the last meeting. We had decided to approve their application pending submission of their tax return. So, Linda, I know you got a response from them.
I did, and they couldn't give me a tax return because they don't file tax returns because their income is too low.
Okay.
And that makes sense. You try to poke around a little bit and find out if anybody knows anything about anybody. And that seems pretty consistent with what is known about anybody.
So I did look at the guidelines, and not that we are in a position to give people tax advice, but from the guidelines I saw, they may be required to file a tax return.
Oh, really?
Maybe, but I don't think we're in a position to make that determination for anybody.
Okay.
That is just my 2 cents on this item, but I think that they probably know better as to whether or not they are supposed to file. And the fact of the matter is they did not file. So we have to make a decision based on the information in front of us. So like my personal leanings are that we should approve it, because we have them signing the application saying that everything they said is true. So, you know, that's kind of, we're taking people at their word by their signature. So that's the way I'm leaning. Does anybody have any thoughts on that? Since we're not getting the tax return, maybe we should change our application going forward to add a, if applicable, give us your tax return.
Yeah.
I didn't think of that because I now that I remember when I was a kid, I didn't earn enough money to file a tax return a couple times. But yeah, I haven't. That never occurred to me in this process, but it makes perfect sense.
I would agree with you, and I'll be talking to this person again, I'm sure, at some point in time, and I can sort of just say, you know, I didn't know that you couldn't, or that you had an option. You know,
I wouldn't. Yeah, so there are guidelines on it, and there is a limit, and there is a higher limit or a higher threshold for seniors.
Okay.
I would just say that they should look. I would just say you should look into it. I wouldn't give them
Right.
I wouldn't give them advice one way or the other. I would just
Right.
say you could look into it. All I did was a quick search. So
I'm trying to review what their income was.
yeah, but there might be something else. I mean, you know how taxes are. There's probably something else that I'm not even thinking of,
Right.
And there's some other reason that they wouldn't file. So that's why I would just leave it alone from that standpoint. As to telling, I don't think we should be telling anybody what to do on their taxes. Yeah. But my general feelings are that I would like to approve the application, and since we voted to approve last time, I feel comfortable putting it to a vote again to approve. Yep. Because I know we had a quorum last time, and everybody who was in the meeting last time felt good about it. So that said, I move that I put a motion that we approve the $1,000 for applicant D.
I second that.
Mike seconds that. Linda?
Hawk's Eye.
Andrew Fleischer, yes.
Mike McKenna, yes.
Okay, great. Good. So that's everything. Now we just discuss the next meeting. So, you know, I will reach out to Cometa and Megan and see if we can get them to commit to a time. But since we're the three people here, I think we get to decide.
Yep.
So how about Thursdays in February, either the 17th or the 24th at 5:30. Maybe the 24th, that's a month from now. How about the 17th? How about the 17th, and that'll give us time to get the application together for March 1st to give people a full month to apply. Yeah. Are you guys available on that day?
Yep.
Sure.
Okay. All right. So we'll put it the 17th at 5:30, and that may be subject to change based on availability of the other members. But I think generally my feelings are that if people cannot find the time to attend these meetings, we still have to move forward because we don't have a lot of time and
there's time constraints.
What's that?
I said there's time constraints on.
There are time constraints, yeah, and the money won't be there forever. So I generally try to do my best to accommodate people's schedules, but we do have to move forward.
Yeah.
Okay. So I move that we adjourn tonight's meeting.
Second that.
All right. Linda?
Hawk's Eye.
Fleischer, aye.
Mike McKenna, yeah, aye.
All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you so
Sure.
much, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
See you
Have a
later.
good night.
You
See
too.
ya.